Welcome back to another episode of People On Point. How to date again, but first do this. I'm really excited about today's episode because what I'm going to be teaching you today is an exercise that I've done with a few women, a few female friends of mine, and they're always shocked at the results. And it's also a good way of getting to know yourself. So for all the male listeners out there, if you end up doing this exercise, I'd be really curious to see what you discovered about yourself, if you thought it was helpful. And for any of my listeners, I always loved hearing your feedback. So please feel free to reach out or leave comments on Instagram when I make the posts. So we're going to look at how to figure out your priorities in a partner, because before you go out and start dating, you need to know what you're looking for. And even before that, like a prerequisite to dating or healthy dating, as I'd like to think about it, is you need to love yourself and know yourself. And I'm here speaking from experience, but this has helped me so much as I felt really lost when it came to dating back a few years ago. And I did block anything related to that for a long time as I didn't have the mental energy to invest in anyone. There was a period of my life where I went through 2.5 traumas, and I will be sharing the half trauma on here in a future episode when I talk about managing stress. So after I got better and I decided that the only thing I could do was just move forward, I decided it's time to open up my heart again and be vulnerable. But I was really lost as to how to start dating again. But I do know myself really well, so I had this part down. And if you don't, you really need to ask yourself, what are your limitations? Where are your areas of improvement? What are your strengths? What can you bring to the table in a relationship? Because both parties need to be bringing something. Don't take these words lightly, because if you don't know yourself, you won't know what you stand for. You won't be able to, show the other person your boundaries. And you need to really be happy before you go out there and open your heart. So once you know who you are and what attracts you and your flaws, what turns you off, and how much you'll be willing to compromise, I think it's time that you figure out what you're looking for in someone. So as you know from my first episode, I always go to books for help. And I remembered a matchmaker, a professional matchmaker. Her name was Patty Stanger. And I went to look at her website and to see, if she was still in the matchmaking business, because I was actually at that point just willing to invest in a matchmaker. However, I couldn't afford her services. So I decided to buy her book, and it's called Become Your Own Matchmaker, which I will leave a link for in the description of the episode. She taught me how to prioritize what I desired in a partner, among many other valuable lessons. So I definitely recommend the book. You can download the ebook or buy the actual physical book. And it's a really fun read. And it's also a good way to assess yourself and, again, what you're looking for and how to establish boundaries, because many of us, are still struggle with that. So I went on my journey and I decided to go all in on finding my husband. And as Patty says, this is for you if you're on a marriage mission. And again, I will reiterate this. This kind of advice is for you if you're looking for something serious, long-term, such as marriage, or if you don't believe in marriage, that's perfectly fine too, but you want to have a stable, successful relationship and someone you can count on. So the results of this might shock you. As I shared earlier, I've done this with a few female friends, and they're always really happy with the result, but they're also surprised at themselves. You first get a pen and paper and you write down these traits: spiritual, financial, emotional, intellectual, and physical. And you write down all the traits that fall under these categories or characteristics of the person, and the list can be endless. But after you write down all the traits, you must pick your top 10. And from the top 10, you pick the 5 traits which are the most important. Again, this is all taken from Patty's book. These are not my ideas. These are her wonderful ideas, which are so good and easy to apply. I'm going to give you some examples that can help you out in case you feel lost. So, under the first one, spiritual. How flexible are you with the kind of faith that the other person would practice? Would you only be with someone of a certain religion or a certain sect? Are you flexible, meaning that you don't mind what faith they practice as long as they believe in something? But the more specific you are, the better. So for me, I have faith in God and I openly talk about it. I openly thank God for what I have in my life. So for example, someone who's an atheist wouldn't really match with me. So I was very specific to put in my top 5 actually, because this is one of my non-negotiables, that he has to believe in God. Because this is how I looked at it. If I'm saying, thank God for this opportunity or thank God for my blessings, and my partner doesn't have the same belief in terms of believing in God, then he might look down on me, or I wouldn't feel like I'd be able to connect with him on this level. And this is a very important level for me to connect with a man on. Next would be financial. Do you care about finances? Do you care if they're more or less financially successful than you? Do you care if they have loans? This is something for you to assess. When it comes down to emotional, what do you look for? What are the really important traits? Remember, you can list as many as you want, but you have to come up with the top 10 and then eventually the top 5 that Patty calls non-negotiables. So for example, do you want them to be resilient, marriage ready, creative? You choose what's important for you. What about intellectual? Do you care if they have a degree? For example, for me, I didn't care about a degree. I didn't care about a piece of paper because I've met people I can't even carry a conversation with that have PhDs. So that didn't matter to me. So for me, I went for a balance of book smart and street smart because I needed them to be worldly. I needed them when I speak of something or a culture or, a country that's very different to where we're from, for example, they would know or at least be interested to know. So I needed that. I needed some kind of, intellectual curiosity as well. And then finally, physical. This is always a fun one when I've done it with my friends. For me, nice teeth were a non-negotiable. Like, I didn't care about a six-pack. I didn't care about a lot of other physical features, but teeth were a non-negotiable for me because a great smile just makes the person so much more beautiful to me. So like I said, when you're done doing these traits, you pick your top 10, then your top 5 that you cannot negotiate. And don't encourage it if he doesn't fit. Patty was really adamant about this, I remember, in her book. So you don't try and make the person that you're dating or thinking about or that you meet fit it. They either do or they don't. And your top 5 will be like a really nice vetting process for you. So what I did is I wrote them down on a piece of paper, and then I went on my laptop and made a table and I did highlights, so it was actually easier for me to play around with them and my priorities. And once you know what you're looking for, it just becomes so much easier to vet. Those would probably not be a good fit. So look out for my next episodes where I talk about how to date in real life and online. I will talk a lot about online dating and how to build a good profile. It's really fun, but at the same time, it's very important because this is like your one chance to impress someone. And then there's many do's and don'ts that I have to share, and especially for the male audience, because again, I'm going to talk about my experiences, and there were just so many inappropriate or just wrong things to have in your profile or in your photos, and I'm going to help you build the best online profile ever. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm really looking forward to getting your feedback on this episode.